Lyrically, you do need somebody to be vulnerable and honest.
It's like therapy,
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
He's become the pop world's secret weapon. Before the 10 Grammys, 2 Golden Globes, and 2 Oscars, we first got to know Finneas for his meticulous layering of sounds. But for his latest studio album, For Crying Out Loud, he switched things up to write almost everything live with a band of mates who are now touring internationally. We caught up with him just before his Sydney show.
Hello, so
Hi,
nice
how's
to
it
meet
going?
you.
Nice to meet you too.
Congrats on For Crying Out Loud.
Thank you.
So many bops. This was such an epic process. Like, you did it in 14 days. What will you take away from that?
The reason that I wanted to make the album the way that we made it, which was essentially live in a room full of musician friends of mine, was to re-inspire myself. I think the first time you write a song, you find an open G chord on a guitar really inspiring, and then once you write 10 songs, you look for something new to inspire yourself. So I was looking for a thing to re-inspire myself, and this definitely did it. So it's been really fun.
You made this massive impact a couple of years ago for so many reasons, but particularly your really unique use of sounds.
Right.
Reflecting on your relationship with sounds, has it kind of changed over the years?
I love found sound. I think that I walk around the world as a tourist, hearing beautiful sounds, or sort of gnarly sounds, whether it's like a construction site or a bird call or footsteps or rain or something. I love the sort of ambient noise of the world. Mm-hmm. I think like anything, once I got sort of like a reputation for doing it, I became kind of keen on not doing it as much, just to not like pigeonhole myself. But I think at heart, I really do love doing that, and I still do it. I just was like, oh, we've used the, crosswalk sound for the chorus of Bad Guy. I was striking matches for this song, and I was using this sound for this song, and it's like, eventually you get to a point where you're like, all right, I don't want to be like the sound effect guy, but I do love them, so, I try to be conscious of when I'm using them.
Have you recorded anything while you've been here?
Yes, actually, we were in Brisbane the other night, and it just suddenly started raining so hard, like just pouring, and it sounded really great. I was walking down the street, so I recorded a little bit of that.
Amazing. Well, keep an ear out.
Yeah.
You have an amazing talent of kind of putting yourself in someone else's perspective and also writing from your own, and I was curious to know what is more intimidating.
I think that if I'm in the room with an artist and we're working on their album, it depends on how forthcoming they're willing to be. Part of the real luxury of making all this music with my sister is she is sort of forthcoming by default, right? I just know her whole life story. But even still, if she comes into the studio and she's still processing some experience she's gone through, or she doesn't feel like sharing anger or heartbreak or something, like that's okay. We can still work on other stuff. We can work on melodies and chords and vibes, but lyrically, you do need somebody to be vulnerable and honest. So I think it requires the same thing either way, whether it's me for my own album or another artist for their album. It requires a level of hate to admit it, but this is actually how I feel. And you can write songs about made up stuff, but I think the sort of easiest way to make sure you're writing something that you'll feel connected to for a long time is to be honest.
It's like therapy,
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
Love it. Beautiful.
You achieved these ginormous accolades early in your career, and some that people spend their whole career trying to achieve. I was curious if there was ever a point in your rise that kind of felt like a whiplash.
I think probably in different ways several times. A standout moment for me was summer of 2019. Billy's album had come out. We were playing these shows that we'd probably gotten booked months before her album had really taken off. And so we're playing a venue that might be smaller than the amount of kids that want to come to the show, whatever. Anyway, that was all fun and exciting, but I remember walking through the airport in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and all the security at the airport had their phones out filming Billy. And I remember thinking that was crazy. I think something about a person who, their job is supposed to be making sure that you don't have a knife or something, and they're just taking a video of you. I think twofold, I was that's so inappropriate, and I also was I bet they're really distracted. I bet they're not doing their job right now.
Yeah.
So little moments of things like that have been jarring, but we're very grateful. This was beyond our wildest dreams. Even though it's been a little bit intense, I have no remorse. I feel very grateful and proud.
What has made it intense? Just the kind of like the rapid adjustment?
I think, there's just elements of it that become, I guess maybe scrutiny and less about some kind of preciousness about privacy and more about like just actual safety. People showing up at your friend's house or your own house or chasing you down a street, like things that are just like physically actually dangerous. That can be really intense, so.
You and Billy are touring separately for the first time, and kind of at the beginning of your career, it sounded like you and your entire family was touring together on a bus going around. And
in a van.
Yeah, and now you're going separately, and I'm curious how it feels looking back on those memories now that you're kind of flying the nest, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we were both so young. I mean, I was 18 and 19, and she was like 14, 15, 16, those first several years. So like, our parents were like there as Billy's legal guardians in addition to being our parents we love. And I loved it so much. I think I sort of established with Billy a long time ago, like at the end of 2022, when we were starting to make Hit Me Hard and Soft, I said, maybe we'll build that show without, me being a piece that needs to be there. And then you can tour as much as you want, and I can do my own shows. And I'm also I am not the best keyboardist or guitarist. I'm very replaceable in that category, And also, it's her show, and it's always been her show. So it's been a real treat for me to get to watch the shows, and I've loved to come out and make little appearances, whenever she asks me to.
Amazing. I've got to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Hey,
I really
thanks for your time.
appreciate it. And I hope you have a great time tonight.
Thank you. I'm excited.